Florida State absolutely demolished Southern Miss this past Saturday night, winning 66-13. Now, I know a lot of fans left this game with some concerns, so we're going to talk about what those concerns are and why you shouldn't worry. As odd as it is to say, the 53-point victory over an FBS opponent who will likely make a bowl game this year, how many concerns could you possibly have? Now, I'm in the boat that while I do agree Florida State didn't play its cleanest game against Southern Miss, it's still a top 3 or 4 team in the country right now, at least. And I'd argue that through 2 weeks, no team has a more impressive resume right now than Florida State, although it was nice seeing Texas beat Alabama. Florida State's offense got off to a bit of a slow start again this past weekend, and especially in the passing game, it was a bit underwhelming. Again, it sounds odd to say this about a 66-point outing, but I think the sentiment is that had they started out at an optimal level and passed the ball the way they did against LSU, they probably could have scored at least another 3 touchdowns or so. The biggest letdown of the evening was, again, Johnny Wilson. I believe he had 4 or 5 passes dropped, and this is following the LSU game where he also had a couple bad drops as well. There also was a few 50-50 type of throws that the receivers weren't able to come down with this time. Now, before we continue on to the poor receiving play, we do got to talk about the best play of the night and probably all of college football this weekend. So it's the catch from Keon Coleman, of course, where he catches the ball on the sideline, shakes off a tackle, tiptoes a little bit, and hurdles over another defender in what looks like a video game type of play. Keon didn't necessarily have his best night either, and still, he's an absolute monster. Some of the lack of production from the passing game is also a bit on Jordan Travis, who didn't look particularly sharp either. There was a couple passes that were underthrown. There was a pass or two, including one to Winston Wright, that may have gone for a touchdown, but Jordan Travis just overthrew him a little bit. To break it down a bit by the numbers, Jordan went 15 of 29 passing, and I don't think he threw a pass in the second half, so all those incompletions came in the first half. He threw for 175 yards and 2 touchdowns, one of which was to Keon Coleman. Keon Coleman hauled in 48 receiving yards. Johnny had 0, and that's not a great sign. Now, really, the disappointment lies with the starters, as some of the second-string receivers like Marquise Douglas, Darion Williamson, and Vendrivius Jacobs all got receiving touchdowns in this game. So there's a bit of a silver lining there. Credit to the Southern Miss secondary for fighting the way they did and being competitive. The run game was simple yet effective again, with Trey Benson having 3 touchdowns on 9 carries for 80 yards. Lawrence O'Philly and Keziah Holmes got in on the action as well. Keziah Holmes got his first touchdown as a Seminole. Now, hey guys, real quick, I just wanted to take a second to ask if you're enjoying the content, you're enjoying talking Florida State football, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. It really means a lot. Let's get back to it. Now, outside of Trey Benson, 3 touchdowns, none of these stat lines are crazy impressive. And like I said, Florida State didn't play its best game. But I think that's what's crazy and promising coming out of the night. You played, maybe a B- game overall, and your starting wide receiver group probably played more like a C- game, and you still throttled this team like you did. Again, I think people should kind of remove the name Southern Miss from the equation for a second and realize that this team ranks similarly to like a low-tier ACC team. They're not necessarily good, but they're not trash either. They even have some SEC transfers on that team, and their quarterback, Billy Wiles, is a transfer from Clemson. This is a team that will likely go bowling this year, so to play a sort of sloppy game and not play to your fullest potential and still be able to win by over 50 points says a lot. And to that point, I'm glad if we had to have a sloppy game, I'm kind of glad it happened here against a team like Southern Miss rather than LSU or Clemson. I do think a lot of these issues will be cleaned up soon. I think part of it had to do with being a short week after an emotional win over LSU. I also think this offense is still really kind of trying to find its footing and work together as a cohesive unit for 4 full quarters. As electric as they've been, we haven't seen them do it for a whole game from start to finish. Now, you have quite a few transfers. It's bound to kind of take some time to work out some kinks. But if what we're seeing is them not at their best, still shaking off some rust and working through some things, this team could be very, very dangerous, especially on offense. And with the way our defense has looked as well, if we could put it all together for a full 4-quarter game, an offense that looked how they did in the second half against LSU, with the way the defense is playing, this is the best team in the country, period. Now we'll dive into all that another time, but I want to take a minute and remind people of 2 years ago, week 2 of 2021. You got beat at home by Jacksonville State, who, by the way, isn't as good as Southern Miss is. Fast forward to now, and you've routed this team without even playing close to your best game. This is how much improved the program is from then to now. Now again, you don't got to take my word for it, but let's look at the numbers. First of all, 4 different players had a receiving touchdown. As we mentioned, Keon had 1, Marquise Douglas, Darion Williamson, and the freshman Vendrivius Jacobs all caught a touchdown in this game. Now, the 66 points we put up, and again, we probably could have scored more like 100 if we really wanted to, But the 66 points scored the other night was the most points scored against an FBS opponent since 2013. And you guys remember that 2013 season, right? The running backs tallied over 300 rushing yards and averaged over 8 yards a carry. There were 102 different players to appear in this game. So lots of kids who got their first reps as a Seminole, a lot of kids who got their first reps in front of their families. And through 2 games now, you scored 111 points, an average of over 55 points a game so far, which is the 4th most points scored in program history throughout 2 games. So this is what I'm saying, guys. Florida State is on the path to at least reach the 2013-ish level, and maybe even better in some cases. I know everybody wants it to look pretty, and I do too, trust me, but you still got to give credit where it's due and realize that this team is elite, even when it's not operating at maximum potential. Again, your offense is putting up over 55 points a game, and your starting defense held LSU to 17 points and Southern Miss to 3. So you're talking about your starting defense giving up 20 points in 2 games, an average of 10 points a game. Guys, that's a winning formula. Now, obviously, those numbers will change as the season goes on, but still. And I'm not trying to sell you anything as far as the team, but I'm just pointing to the reasons why I'm not worried. I think as far as Johnny Wilson, I think he's just in his head a little bit. Maybe his confidence is taking a bit of a hit, and it's kind of just compounded on itself a little bit like last season with Ryan Fitzgerald. But I think we see him figure it out, and hopefully soon. Hopefully this week. Boston College doesn't look good at all, so if I'm calling plays, honestly, I'm force-feeding Johnny Wilson the football this week against Boston College until he finally snaps out of his funk and gets back to himself. I know he had drops last year as our premier guy, and frankly, that's just Johnny. He's going to have some bad drops that'll make you furious, but he'll also come in close with the hard grabs when it's needed the most. But either way, it's time for him to figure it out, because if you can imagine a confident Johnny Wilson on one side and then Keon Coleman on the other side, it's just unstoppable. It's so unfair. They just need to get dialed in a little bit better, and I think they will. The very promising things I saw out of this game, other than what we've already mentioned, the defense, they just had a dominant performance. Jerry and Jones even had a really nice pick 6. I also like seeing the younger guys get some reps. Brock Glenn, even though he didn't attempt to pass, he looked really good on a little scamper play. Rodney Hill and Keziah Holmes got involved. I think both of those guys will be stars for Florida State as they get older and more developed. Vandrevius, All-Day Dre, got his first touchdown as a Seminole. Just lots more positives coming out of this game, and I think people should absolutely focus more on that. Again, obviously it's not a perfect game, but 66-13 on a short week, I can definitely live with that. And I do think we'll see lots of improvement throughout the next few weeks as well. So 2-0, guys. Team's looking great, and we've risen to number 3 in the AP poll, so you got to love that. What do you guys think? Who was your favorite performer of the night? What all did you take away from the Southern Miss game and these first 2 weeks in general? Let me know in the comments, and let's talk Noles.